up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Checkmate. I'm your host of Checkmate, Mr. Nick Joyner. And this is the first episode of the spring semester. I'm excited. We have a good topic today. One of our own students, Miss Caitlin Leggett. Her book, Mad Black Woman, it's really good. She'll be on the show talking about it and giving us her insight about it and everything that led up to her writing the book, her inspirations on it, and kind of diving deep into her life a little bit today. So, as I mentioned, today our guest is a poet, an author, activist, journalist. Throw all those in one big pot and you get our special guest, Miss Caitlin Leggett. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
This is your second time on the show.
Yes.
And it's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. Mm-hmm. And I think it was over the pandemic, you came out with your own book.
Yes, the first time I was on the show, it was not published yet. I don't think. I was still kind of in the work, still dragging my feet on it, but we're here now. She's out.
Well, before we dive deep into the show, I'm going to tell you face to face. Because I was going to tell you over the phone, but I was like, nah, it's not going to do no justice. I'm a fan of this right here. This is good stuff. I was reading it and I was like, dang. Like, because I remember last semester you came on, you talking about, yeah, I'm coming out with a book and, it's not done yet, but when it be done, I said I was going to get you back and you're here now. I'm so glad. So before we talk about the book, just open it. I saw that one of the first few pages you said your inspiration was your aunt, Diane, who passed away when you were a senior high school, right? Correct? Mm-hmm. Kind of talk to us about that and how she inspired you to write this book.
So my aunt Diane she was one of those like pillars of Durham. Her and her husband owned so many businesses. They ran things in technology. They had a art gallery downtown. They owned it was a business complex that was also an apartment complex right in front of the Bull. They did it all, and I just thought they were Superman and Superwoman. Mm-hmm. And when I was about 8, my uncle he was shot and killed. And so it was just her. And I spent all my time over there when I was little. They had they had a floor to themselves in the apartment complex. And it was so cool. Like, I loved running around there. So I spent a lot of time with her when I was young. She was heavily into the church. That's how I got into the church. She introduced like my mom and my dad. That's how they got married. That's how I'm here. Mm-hmm. So she just did a lot for me. And I patterned a lot of my personality, a lot of the way I go about my own business, the way I'm into everything. All of that is really because of her.
That's interesting. I feel like in that way we relate because, I had an aunt who I was close with and she died my senior year of high school and she didn't get to, see a lot of the things I have going on in my life right now. But in a way it kind of inspired me to keep going and, mm-hmm. Just keep pushing, reaching for better things. But getting into the book, reading it, a lot of good poems, a lot of good words of wisdom in there. It was just great. But it's two in particular I would like to talk about with you. The first is Today's Special. And what kind of led you to write something with that type of content in there, talking about gun violence or your experience with that?
So I'm from Durham, North Carolina, okay, Bull City,
Shout out to Durham. Shout out to Durham.
919, okay. And usually when you tell people from Durham, they like, Durham, and they proceed to tell you how bad Durham is or some story. I'm like, relax, okay? Right. Chill out. But in a sense, Durham really is. It has its, its parts. Back in what I want to say, likely the 50s and 60s, even on then, Durham was the Black Wall Street. It was the mecca for black business, and gentrification happened.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so downtown housed over 100 businesses, all black owned. It was the Howard of black business mm-hmm. at the time, and those businesses eventually got forced out because of gentrification, and so you're left with a lot of rundown communities, and that's not to say that those communities are not still strong, but the money has been funneled out. Those people are being pushed out. So what you're left with are like tattered communities, and communities that promote things like gangs and violence and crime, and you're a product of your environment. So there are certain things that I've seen and that my friends and I were used to, and we didn't realize that it wasn't normal. Like, we didn't know it wasn't normal for a party to get shot up.
Right.
I didn't know that until I was a freshman in college, and I was in Boston, and somebody said a club got shot up, and they acted like it was the end of the world, and I was like,
that's normal.
End of the party.
Right.
Time to go. So there are just certain things in Durham that you're used to. Things like seeing people your age in caskets.
Right.
Like, I'm pretty sure the first time I knew somebody who died, I was probably in middle school. And you don't think anything of that because that's what you're raised around. And I think in a way it makes a lot of us stronger. Like, people from Durham are really cut different, and I really believe that. I will put anybody in my seat on, because I believe, like, you came from what I came from, you cut like that. So that's also to say that kids shouldn't have to go through that. Like, there's no reason that children should know about gun violence but not know their ABCs.
Right.
There's no reason that they should hear gunshots and not, like, question whether it's fireworks or gunshots. Like, they automatically go to gunshots. And I was in a situation where there was some kids. I was in the wrong place, wrong situation type of thing, and it was some kids who were just products of their environment, doing what they thought they needed to do to get by. And so I've had several experiences with guns and gun violence. And I think it has less to do with the fact that it's not that nobody's a thug or nothing like that. It's that these kids don't have the resources. These kids are not being invested in. So what do you expect them to do?
Right.
If these kids are, like, funneled into this school to prison pipeline by the time they're in the 3rd grade, well, what do you expect? Like you thought it was going to be a doctor and a lawyer? You're pushing it.
Exactly.
So a lot of the poem was really calling out Durham PD and the way they handle situations, calling out the way that they deal with the youth in Durham, and the way that investments are not made into the community like it should be. And I don't want to hear this about you don't have the money, because that police station down there was like 60 mil.
Exactly.
You telling me you don't have the money to put back into Bragg, into the MAC? Like, what? That makes no sense. So it's just kind of my take on, like, coming back to how do you take back your own community, and how do you, like, invest into the kids that are supposed to be your future. Like, if you're not investing in them, how can they invest in themselves?
That's great stuff. That really is. Cause I come from Winston-Salem. I ain't trying to bash Durham. We ain't as bad as Durham, but it's something similar to that. And I see a lot of kids back there, and a lot of them just after high school, it's like, okay, what am I gonna do with my life? I got a mom at home. I got these little siblings to take care of, and we barely getting by. So I gotta be the one to provide. And they go out and they do regular stuff that ends up leading them down the wrong path, whether it's dead or in jail or having to get things illegally, but that's the only thing they know. And so I've seen a lot of that. And so reading your book, it was just like, there's some deep stuff behind that.
I think it makes it even worse too, because the kids be so talented. Like, I know some little dudes out the hood, like, it amazes me, like, how talented they are, like, more so than the kids you see in private school, because they just bred with it. That's just how they came up. Like, they picked that up on their own. Versus you got, these kids are taught. This is not even cultivated, and they're this smart, and they're this talented, and they're this outgoing. Invest in that. Like, there's so much there.
Right.
But to everybody else, it's just a little kid out from the hood.
The next poem that I read was entitled Dear PWI. And as you know, we attend that, and kind of talk about that. And I want to know what you were thinking when you were like, as you were writing this stuff.
So I, freshman year, I attended a school out in Boston, Massachusetts, and I took an issue, especially being from Durham. I was not used to not being around black people.
Yeah.
That, like, even though like my high school was a predominantly white high school, that's not the people that I hung around. That's not the community that I lived in. So when I got to Boston, I was out there by myself, and it was a lot of white people. And don't get me wrong, I don't regret the experience because I learned a lot. You also had a lot of immigrants, so a lot of different cultures, like more cultures I've ever been exposed to. But I took an issue with how exploitive the school was, because I understand, like, I went there to play volleyball. So yes, I am a martyr for the school, but at the same time, why am I the only black kid in the classroom? Why am I the only black girl on the volleyball team?
Right, it poses a question, right?
Why am I every photo op? Like, I just found it very much, they wanted me to be the token black girl. And I think there were a lot of instances where they tried to kind of box me in. So there was always this notion of when I was at these photo ops or at these events that I needed to be this boxed in version of myself to make them look good, to make the school look good. And I ain't really like that. I have to do that in every other setting, and I'm sitting here living on campus. I'm playing for this school. This is now my community, and I can't even be myself.
Makes you uncomfortable.
Like, and I just think there were way too many resources at that school for them to not have at least black faculty or some type of, they tried, they did, but it was very much a performative effort. And you see that a lot of different schools, especially PWIs, they give you a performative email saying how we support, but then there's no follow through. There's nothing to back it up.
Exactly.
And I get that's what we're gonna see a lot of the time in the real world. Yeah, okay, but that doesn't mean that's how it has to be. That doesn't mean we gotta sit back and be okay with it. So, like, I believe there's a line in the poem that says, "I'm not your token black girl," and I'm not.
Hey, that's how I started off, and I was like, okay, what else?
And like, even now, so at the school I went to, like, they're fighting back. I was a part of the BSA that's there. They have done countless protests. I mean, they did a tuition strike. They really been like taking it back, and I'm so proud of them, because I know there were so many things that we talked about and so many different conversations about just being tired of it, that I'm glad that they're finally taking a stand, and I hope to see change. Like, I understand that that's a lot of what we're not gonna see, especially in our lifetime, but I hope to at least see like footsteps towards it, or at least know that there's a possibility, that there's hope for it. So
you talked about your aunt, the poem, Today's Special, and just talked about Dear PWI. Separated from all of those, your experiences with life, how did they help you or mold you to be where you are today and be able to come out with books like this?
I think the book, the byline says Diaries on the Intersectionality of a Black Woman. And the book in itself is a coming of age. Poems that I've written, honestly, none of those poems are recent. Maybe one or two, but at best, I'm pretty sure a good 80% of those poems I wrote probably when I was in high school. And it's telling how they still relate to this day. So I think my experiences have created an intersectionality in me. There are so many different parts to me. I'm not just the token black girl.
Right.
I can sit in your white institution and fit in, but at the same time, I'll go to the party and return.
Right.
At the same time, I go into work and sit in a professional setting and make my coins.
Right.
Like, I can exist in every space. And I think that's my favorite part about myself. That's what Durham did for me. Like, it molded me into being malleable. Like, I'm not a block. I don't stop. Like, I don't get boxed in for just one thing. I can fit into any space, but I still know who I am.
Right.
And I still have my core values, and I still have the things that have shaped me into who I am.
So how do you take writing and because you use writing as your escape, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How do you take that and just put it out there and not necessarily look at it as a job that you have?
It's hard. I think, especially I'm a double major in mass communications and computer information systems with a minor in journalism. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of writing, and I get tired of it. Like, I get so tired of it. So I think it's because my poetry, that's not something that's scripted. That's I woke up at 3 a.m. and this was the words that I couldn't get out of my head. Mm-hmm. Or I was upset about something and this is how I got it out. It's just whatever I needed to express. So I think, like, recently, like, sometimes I'll get, like, kind of commissioned to do products or projects. And recently, a homegirl of mine asked me to write a poem for an album she's dropping. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what kind of keeps me, like, it keeps it separated from being a job, because those creative projects, those things where it's not just me having to be so emotional, those things where I can just kind of, okay, you give me a prompt, I can kind of vibe with it, flow with it, see what comes. So I think trying to keep the emotional side, and there's a freeing side to it that they don't always have to go hand in hand. Sometimes it can just be, all right, I'm just writing. Like, there's no pressure behind it. And when it comes to putting the work out there, the first couple times I was scared. Like, I'm very critical of myself. I mean, I'm still my biggest critic. But
as you should be.
Yeah.
Right.
But when I started getting things published, it was more so like, okay, like, I can do this. Mm-hmm. You know, my work might not be for everybody, but it's for somebody. Mm-hmm. Like, somebody gonna feel me.
For sure. Now, work, school, sports, and your internship. How do you balance all of that stuff?
I don't. It's crazy. I just got a new job. I'm a writer for Black Jewels now, okay? It's a publication, but I really don't. When it comes to school, I'm one of those people who has to get ahead to stay on track. Because if I don't, like, I can't be doing assignments, you know, when they're due. I have to do assignments before they're due, because if not, it's not going to get done. Like, I can't do planners. If you look at my room, I have, like, 3 different whiteboards. One is for to-do lists, one is, like, my calendar, one is for schedules. Like, I'm very chaotic when it comes to that. I'm not an organized person. But yeah, I think the best way to answer that is that I don't. But I also don't do it on my own. There are times when, like, my coach, she helps me out so much. I love her. I love you, Vicky. I do. Cause, like, I'm not on my own with anything. My best friends, they help me out a ton. Like, my teammates, like, people at the school, like, everyone helps me out. So it's not like it's something I'm doing all on my own. It's a collective thing. Like, that whole "it take a village to raise a child," yeah, right. They be helping me.
That's important, man. You need people on your team that's gonna help you and push you to be better and get better. Cause I mean, if they ain't supporting you, then you know what they're around for. What are they there for? Well, that's good. Now, you have any other upcoming works? I know you do.
Other than I'm kind of working on the next book, but I can't even tell you when that'll be. And it's also going in a different direction, so we'll just see where that comes. I'm a writer for Black Jewels, so we'll see work coming there. And as far as poetry, I'm gonna be writing forever.
Right.
As long as this stuff messing my head up, I'm gonna be writing forever. So But you know, go buy my book.
Where can they find your book at?
On Amazon.
And can they get on your Instagram?
Oh yeah, follow me Yadang_Skippy on Instagram and Twitter.
Now, you being, I'll call you a black creator. You are a creator. And what would you have to say about your impact, or what would you like your impact to be in the future, to whether it's, you know, people you see around at, you know, the same school you attend, or the young kids in Durham who maybe are like, I want to write too, but I don't really know how I feel about it, or like, what would you say to them?
Well, for kids in Durham, I want them to know they can do it all. Like, it does not have to be, you do not have to rap or go to the league. Now, if you got it, you know what I'm saying? If you're a 6'6" lineman, you do your thing. But that does not have to be your end game. You can get into whatever you want to get into. There's nobody, I don't care if there is somebody telling you can't. There is nobody that can tell you you can't, because you can't. That's just period. And as far as my impact, I don't know. People tell me I'm going to be famous, but I think I would rather be one of those people that's like, if I walked into a room with colleagues and people in my field, they're like, oh, that's that girl. That's Miss Lady right there.
Right.
But you know, maybe I'm walking down the street and don't everybody know me.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you've seen my work and you didn't know it was me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I want my work to speak for me. I don't want to have to do the talking for it.
Exactly. Now, for those who didn't catch it, where can they find your book at?
The Mad Black Woman, Diaries on the Intersectionality of a Black Woman, on Amazon. Okay, Caitlin Leggett, go get that.
On Amazon, go get that. Please do. It's good reads. A lot of good stuff in this book. Caitlin, I appreciate you every time you come through and you bless us with great stuff to feed our brain with, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
That's all we have for Checkmate. Thank you guys for joining us. We out.